Fretwork. This is very similar to some of the first we saw over there. Another great storefront. It's nice that there are so many, so intact, so close together, because you really do begin to appreciate what a great effect this has when you have all these together. I do want to talk about this original sort of encaustic tile here in the vestibule. That's a very nice effect that you don't see a whole lot of. That certainly looks to be original late 19th century tile work. And of course the storefront, the doors have been changed. They're aluminum and glass, but that's okay. The originals were long since gone, obviously, and they replaced them with something that still keeps the feel. So that'll work. Again, just a different design. Another panel culture. This is one of my favorite. I really like this. When I first started coming to Oxford, my sister went to school here. I didn't, and I won't tell you where I went because I'm almost home free. But this was really, had been changed. This is a great late 19th century eclectic style building. That wonderful brick pattern work and everything. I love the columns with the simple fretwork, but the capitals. Look at the cast iron acanthus leaf capitals and the octagonal base. I mean, it's just beautiful stuff. And what they had done to it in the 1960s or 70s was infill this and put little windows. And it was just so unfortunate. But I'm so thrilled with what they've done because they put all this new, but it really does a great job of keeping the idea alive with the tile for the bulkhead and the windows actually open. So that's so wonderful that you really get that interaction with the sidewalk in the shop like we were talking about earlier. You have the transom with the square, with the signage in the transom, which is a great place for signage. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, also everything else, but once you look back, we've seen so much already, but again, you see the great storefronts in both of those places, just very nicely intact for the most part. And this awning that goes across is really nice. A lot of small towns, you'll see this kind of simple flat roof awning with a metal roof on it. Sometimes supported like here with cast iron columns, sometimes with wooden chamfered posts. In some cases, they have them suspended from the parapet of the building even. But flat awnings really were used quite a lot in the 19th and early 20th century. They were a very practical solution, and they worked very well. So that's another thing to consider. You know, a lot of Main Street programs, when they go in, everybody wants to put these nice little canvas awnings everywhere. You know, that's okay, but it may not be what was there. And this has been here for a really long time, and it's a great solution to that. So something needs to be preserved. And you can kind of see how the idea has been carried on in some of the balconies that we came under as we went down the street. Nelson Company. Now I want us to look back at the building we talked about real quick on the corner. And you can see a little bit as we get further on. About halfway, well, see where the keystone is and that fan light in the top there? Draw a line down that, and that's pretty much where the building had been painted on one half and the other half wasn't painted. So they took the paint off, probably sandblasted it. And that, you can see where there've been some repointing and the mortar's a little bit different color and had to replace some bricks, or the bricks are falling because there's different colors going on there. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to sandblast because that will create problems and forever cause issues. And the building next to it looks like the mortar joints in it are a little bit too wide. That's something else. This is late 19th century brick buildings. And we talked about earlier, the mortar joints in buildings of that period most of the time were fairly simple, fairly thin, and maybe had a little bead running down the middle of them, but they were not going to be that visible. That's probably too much mortar over the surface of the brick. Now, this is really great. Here's our plaque, Livermore Foundry. This building was constructed in 1897, 96, 97. I think we have a pretty firm date for the construction of this building. Of course, the business is much older. That's one of the traps people fall into. Well, the business is 1839. This must be an 1839 building. No, we have that come up a lot. It's late 1890s, Colonial Revival building. We're going to walk out in the parking lot because I want you to look up at the pressed metal detailing up there. We talked about pressed metal being used mainly for ceilings, and in some places on facades. This is the best example of that in Oxford, and we'll see it in a minute. But you see the little rosettes, see the pilasters. This is very nice. 1897, probably the original cast iron that was later replicated around, and they replicated it in the posts and did a lot. I don't know what was here originally, but it's a very nice effect that they've done. So we know some of those buildings are older than 1897, we suspect, but the storefronts are very similar to this, so it makes you wonder. Those storefronts were remodeled later, or was that just an old-fashioned pattern that they kept in their inventory and the Nelsons liked it? Who knows? That's just one of those little questions we like to ask. Now, if we can come down here and go out there, I want you to see, well, let's just do it here. Probably take our lives in our own hands, but just out enough to really look and see. I think this is probably good. They picked it out very nicely in the contrasting paint colors, all the nice little swags and wreaths, all in pressed metal through there. A very nice colonial revival effect. The colonial revival began really in 1876 at the Centennial Exposition of Philadelphia, when Americans and architects began to look at our colonial past as inspiration for new architecture. And by the 1890s, it was pretty well full-blown. So you had these wonderful classical motifs going back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome that are used in a brand new material on a brand new building, but to give that sort of classical colonial pedigree in the pressed metal. You have the cast iron and I'm sure the original storefronts were large pieces of plate glass, similar to what you see here. So in a colonial revival building of the late 19th century, harkening back stylistically to designs of over 100 years ago, but all done in modern, up-to-date, up-to-minute materials, cast iron, plate glass, and pressed metal. So I just think that's a fun way to talk about and look and appreciate what all happened. And as you can imagine, I don't have a problem with modern architects building in a traditional historic style. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, we're about through. I want to go over here and talk about the little office. I don't think we talked about the Skipwith office, did we? Let's go back over here on the sidewalk on the way over there. I think these are they look like little shutter blinds closed, little links of whatever up there. Just another example of how you use that. Does anybody know about the Skipwith House? That's where this little office came from, on University Avenue where the museum is. The Skipwith House, there's a painting of it in there, was a beautiful, very significant 1860s Italianate style house with a little Second Empire tower, a little mansard roof. Beautiful, beautiful house, very well detailed inside and out, but unfortunately in the 1970s it came down for an extension of the museum. But fortunately the city was able to preserve this little building as a reminder of it and bring it here for the tourism office. So we've been around the square, we've seen a lot of good preservation, a lot of good opportunities. We're kind of coming back to remind us to never take anything for granted, because no matter how significant or important anything is, like the City Hall from the 1930s, if we're not constantly aware of it, we could lose something. And we don't always know what's going to be significant or important, but we need to take the time to really be careful and look at it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Would you mind rapping? I literally ran out of battery.
Oh, sure.
Right then.
Okay.
It's too bad that was the
But
best part.
I've got enough for like,
Okay.
oh, dang it, it's gone.
You just have to
Anyway.
reload because that was a great part.
Well,
Can you reload?
There is no reload. I expected it to be an hour, so I
I'm
only
sorry,
had
it was
enough
supposed
to
to be
do
an
for
hour.
an hour.
He'll do it again for you.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna come for the end of the later one.
Yeah.